Okay, hi. My name's Rudy, and I'm basically going to give you some sort of insight, some idea about data journalism. So I guess a bit of background about myself. I am a partner with Seed14A, which is basically a startup. We're into fashion tech. We do traveler-inspired clothing for men every week, micro collections. I've also founded another startup called Math Harbor, which is basically trying to get numerical computing, put it out there as a SaaS. You guys don't have to buy licenses, you guys don't have to buy servers. You just sign up with me and start hacking away on numerical models. I'm also a part of Hacks Hackers New Delhi, which is this meetup group. We basically try and merge journalism and tech together, which is where big data plays a huge role. And I'm also a part of 91 Springboard, is this awesome startup events hub based out of New Delhi. Anyway, so now that the niceties are past, data journalism. So that's two words, data journalism. What do you guys, what's the first thing that pops up into your mind when I say these two words? Anybody? Come on, don't be shy. I know you guys want to say something.
Some fancy.
It is fancy, trust me. Very fancy. Pays fancy too. Anyway, so I guess at the most simplistic level, it's journalism done with data. Data backing up your story. But I say that's way too simple. Let's just spice up things a bit. Okay? So, I believe it's a personal thing. Data is a very troublesome word because today anything and everything can be counted as data. Is somebody live tweeting this event right now? No? Okay. Well, if you were live tweeting it, that's data. If somebody checked into Foursquare right now, that's data. One day, some company is going to find that and use it to get some kind of insight into, I don't know, people coming into IIT. At the same time, journalism has also changed. I mean, you've got digital media out there, you've got YouTube, you've got you've got so many different video apps that can actually stream news in real time. You've got Facebook. I don't read the newspapers, I read Twitter. That's where I get my news from. So everything's just changed. And that is how, 20 years ago, data was just 20 rows in a spreadsheet. Today, all our combined friend circles, their likes, their interests, even that can't be counted as data. That's out there, big data. So, I think in my opinion, data journalism is basically you using data to drive your stories, to find a new aspect to your story that nobody else really ever thought of. Okay, so that's data-driven stories. Now, do you guys have any examples in mind where data journalism might have been used? Have you guys ever heard of any, hot visualization created? Anything that pops into your mind? Yeah.
There's this startup called Visually.
Yeah. So Visually basically helps you, with Visually you upload data sets and you can create interactive infographics. Normally, when you want to create an infographic for your startup, you approach your designer, you crunch out the data yourself, the designer uses Photoshop and gives you an infographic in, 3 weeks. Visually, I think it's a 3-hour process. It took me 3 hours to design an infographic on database startups in India. So Visually is one. Any others? No? And find out, okay, is the state of New York spending more on the MTA? That's the Metro Transportation Authority, by the way. Or are they spending more on, subsidizing food coming into the city? Then, did you guys hear about the Icelandic volcanic eruptions a couple of years ago? So there's this guy in Berlin who actually created these awesome infographics distilling the amount of pollution that was spread all over Europe by that one volcano. And his infographics were then used by scientists to try and analyze if there was a similar eruption again, say in the state of Washington, what would the effects be? Then analyzing trends in open source or classified intelligence. Now this is one of my favorites. 9/11 happened, the planes crashed into the Twin Towers, everybody grieved. And the 9/11 Commission sat down. They took about a year and they came to the conclusion that, okay, the United States has 14 different intelligence agencies. You have the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the NSA. Each army, each military branch has their own intelligence agency. Then you've got the National Reconnaissance Office, you've got the Department of Homeland Security. There's this whole mosaic of people working. Nobody knows what the guy in the next organization is doing. And many a times, something that lands up in the DHS does not make its way to the FBI, even though it really pertains to their area of duty. So the 9/11 Commission basically, they directed the US government to create A-Space, Facebook for Spies. A-Space is basically this collaborative platform built on top of a couple of open source technologies, which allows people from different agencies to, collaborate with each other. But the other part about A-Space is its big data functions. Have you guys heard of the Nigerian bomb plot, Christmas 2009? It was foiled just because of A-Space. Exactly. Somebody from the CIA, from the local CIA station, uploaded an alert that this guy has been, witness in the company of Islamic extremists, and that is where the DHS used big data, and they actually found out that this person is going to, carry bombs in his underpants and bomb Washington DC, and that's where they caught him. Big data helps. There's not been a single bomb attack. Well, there was one, but that was Chechen, two demented Chechen brothers. And then WikiLeaks. Those guys are amazing. I don't really subscribe to their political motives, but I love their techies. The amount of data that those guys crunch through and the kind of visualizations, especially geospatial visualizations that they build, is amazing. I mean, if you check out the Iraq War diaries or the Afghan War diaries, you can just see on one map where was the last attack, where was a civilian killed. It's amazing. Mind-blowing. Out of this world. Now, the thing about data journalism, like any other journalism that happens today, your story is as good as your data. If your data is flawed, if your data is biased in any way, your story will be biased too. And it's like a disclaimer. If you guys ever go into data journalism, you need to go through your data with a fine-tooth comb, with a magnifying glass, because one biased number in that variant, your story goes for a toss. The truth may be something else, you might be saying something else. Something may not happen at that point of time, but 10 years down the line, when a research student digs it up, your credibility is going to go for a toss. Right, so I guess we can all agree data journalism is pretty awesome, right? Okay, cool, I'm not the only one. But there's always a but. Data journalism uses big data. Big data means coding. Mind blown. How many of you here are coders? So you'd become, given a couple of hours and, once you go through a couple of tutorials, you would know how to put up a Python script and just, reduce data to actionable trends, right? How many of you here are, content writers or journalists? So would you like to code? My huge breaking story going on. You want to go out there and you want to, you've got lots of archives. Your media house has archives dating back a century on that particular field or that particular topic. Do you think you have the time frame to actually go down, write code? No, I guess not. I didn't. The thing about big data is that you need to code. Journalists these days may want to code, they may be fluent with it too, but they don't have the time for it. Are you going to sit down and hack away on Python, or are you going to go out there and figure out what your story is going to be like? So the other problem is that in news agencies, I've worked for a big media house in India. Technology is like a complement, it is not a cornerstone, and that is where just about every media house is going wrong. And I mean it, every media house. Because if you treat technology as a complement, you will never get anywhere. The Guardian employs 50 programmers, and they are seasoned ninja coders. Forgive me for using that phrase. But they are seasoned ninja coders, and they've been there, they're like been there, done that sort of people. The story breaks, an email goes out, within 3 hours, there's visualization, there's info, there's trends. Journalists take that, they write the story, and we're like, wow, the Guardian does impressive journalism. But how did they do it? Because they understand that technology is a keystone. It's not just something, let's just hire a couple of interns, they'll do the stuff for us. Not saying hiring interns is bad, but you need committed people on your team, and that is where every media house goes wrong. If you don't have committed coders, you cannot do big data, period. Yeah.
Just in the defense of non-coders.
Josh.
I represent a company named Visual Data.
Okay.
Also runs a company called Clear Data, which does analytics, visual
Yeah.
data, visualization. We were one of the first people to do data journalism in India back in 2009, 2010. Who here knows of Medianama? Most people know of Medianama. Nikhil Fava, everyone's familiar with him. So we started something called charts.medianama.com, which was essentially a data journalism initiative and we ran it for close to 2 years. It was I think June of 2011 when we said nothing's happening, let's move on. So we focused on building products, and obviously Nikhil went on to do the stuff that he keeps on doing. But we weren't restricted by coding. You know, I'm not a coder.
So,
I use tools that are free, that are publicly available. I use tools like Tableau. Guardian themselves uses Tableau. New York Times uses Tableau, and many other such softwares which are free to use. So that's just in defense of non-coders.
no, I agree. So non-coders are awesome people. I used to be a non-coder at one point of time. No, so I'm talking about, okay, so Tableau also has certain restrictions, and they are mostly functional restrictions. If you're analyzing terabytes of data, Tableau may not just do the trick for you, may not, it all depends on what kind of data you're really trying to crunch.
There's an argument against that too,
Yeah, I mean, there's for, there's against.
Taking technology not to like.
Oh, yeah, so that's supposed to be over.
So, basically my thing is, tech should not be taken lightly when it comes to journalism. It can really help you. It's helping newspapers out there. Pretty certain it can help you here. Then the biggest problem that we face at Hacks Hackers. So we organized this meetup in February, which is all about big data visualization. So one team decides to answer this question: does literacy solve every social problem? So the problem is that there's no data out there. So data.gov.in is a very new concept, and most of their data sets are either old or they're not really worth it. I mean, that data is worth nothing in today's world. Data in India, and not just India, actually in most third world countries, is non-existent. Why? Because governments either do not want to put it out, or there's this general ineptitude that's out there, or corruption, the same age-old story. But public data sets aren't always available, and that causes a huge barrier. Hopefully things are going to change. I mean, with the new data.gov.in initiative, the NIC may just put out more data sets out there in the next 1 year. So let's keep our fingers crossed. And access it through an API. Anybody can use it in their mobile apps. Anybody can use it for visualizing, a certain problem. Why can't our news agencies start doing that? The Times of India has been in existence since. You're from TOI, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
175 years.
Yeah.
They have a big
The 175.
Let's leave TOI out of the equation.
HT
HT has been there for about 70 odd years. They've got news clippings from God knows when, before independence. Just imagine all that data digitized. Imagine the magic you can work with it. But we can't. They just don't put it out there. It's not a. Sorry. They have, but no, it's not fast enough. And I'll give you another example. So a friend of mine is not bad at it. I should take it up as a living. Anyway. So Math Harbor. We basically, I used to be an engineering kid before I dropped out. And the biggest thing that I noticed was things like MATLAB, Mathematica. These are basically engineering packages for math. There's this huge license tag attached to it, plus, the college needs to invest in heavy-duty servers. I'm like, come on, it's the cloud revolution. Let's just put all this stuff on the cloud. You've got Google Chrome, you've got stuff like WebSockets. Why not make it better? So thankfully that's actually working out now. I've somehow figured out all the tech blues. We're rolling it out to a couple of colleges in August. Might just work. But I'm also looking at Tableau, for instance. Tableau, petabytes of data may not work out. There's this other startup based out of Mountain View called Motor Data. They're basically a Y Combinator backed venture. These guys have made it very, very easy to set up a cluster on the cloud, use Hadoop and everything. So you don't need to be a systems engineer, you don't need to be a DevOps guy. All you have to do is sign up, upload your data, put in your code specifying what operations you want to do on the data, and it's all done. You're just doing the coding part. You do not set up servers and all that. I want to take it a step further, and I want to make it graphical. Microsoft, back when I was in college, they released something called the Robotics Studio. Basically meant to make robotics, the barrier into robotics lower for kids and companies alike. So they created something called the Visual Programming Language. You drag and drop stuff, bam, code's generated. I love that stuff. I seriously loved it. And I want to do the same thing for journalists. Upload your data, drag and drop, decide what you want to do with it, and then go grab a coffee, have an apple pie with me, you're all set. Let's make, I want to make data journalism that simple. how do they say? Dead simple. Yeah. I want to make it dead simple. And I don't know if that makes sense to a lot of people or not, because at first it didn't make sense to me. But it's an idea. Gotta roll with it.
You want to automate coding.
Yes, to an extent, yes. The idea is, you heard of metaprogramming, right? You use code to write more code. Code automatically creates itself. It's, I don't know what it's called, genetic stuff and all that. I don't go in tags. But yeah, that's the idea. Automate programming and, try and make them just concentrate on what they are good at. I'm not good at sports. So thankfully my mother doesn't make me, do cricket. So I do well, I do just fine. Journalists may not be good at coding, they may not be interested in it, they may not have the time for it. Well, just leave them be. Let's make it dead simple for them. So yeah, that's about it. Consider this your data store. Contains so there are 323 MPs in the House of Commons. On an average, each MP submits at least 100 receipts every month. So that's about 32,300 receipts from the House of Commons. You have another 200 MPs from the House of Lords. So that's, and they again submit an average of 100 receipts every month, on which everything is documented. Now you pour all this into your data store. It's basically an HDFS. Okay, how many of you guys are familiar with things like Hadoop and MapReduce? Okay, that's 2. That's 3. That's something. 4, 5. Awesome. So basically, it's an HDFS store. You store all of these as documents, collections, documents, whatever the case may be. I personally go in for Mongo. You can always use Hadoop. It's up to you. Now, usually what you do is you write something code in something called Pig, which is basically a dialect of Python. The idea is that you write code in Pig, which works on the data, maps it to certain key values, reduces those keys, and then figures out trends. But this is coding. This is coding. You need to know Python, you need to know Pig, you need to know how to do MapReduce. I want to remove this part from the equation. So the idea is that there's a canvas. You upload your data to a bucket on Amazon or Rackspace, whatever works for you. Over here are building blocks. It's a very nascent system, so forgive me if I don't sound very clear with my thoughts, because I'm not clear with them myself. I just love the ideas and play with them. Building blocks. Robotics Studio gives you building blocks. If you want to attach a motor, you attach a motor. If you want to add an if-then-else construct, you basically drag a block, connect it to different points. The code is automatically generated for you. I'm doing the same thing. At least I'm working towards the same thing. Yeah.
Just a little bit context. I mean, is this Math Harbor or is it something different?
This is the next pivot of Math Harbor. This is what Math Harbor will ultimately be. The college thing is just, for the community, which will probably never be monetized. I don't even see how. So that's another thing that I'd like to talk about. How do you monetize data journalism? For you are the expert actually. You should be talking about that.
Brilliant.
So yeah, data journalism is a little tricky to monetize. You could tie up with different news agencies, take their data, create interactive visualizations for them. That's one way. And I think this is another way of monetizing data journalism. It's like a pass. You subscribe to it, depending upon the amount of data that you think you might be working on every month or every year. You pay as you go.
I think as far as monetizing is concerned, no kind of journalism is monetized, right? It's all ad driven.
Ultimately, yes.
So it
It's
has
all
to be the
ad-driven.
same thing probably.
Maybe if I am rich enough by then through my book deals, I may just give it out for free. I would love to do that, but yeah. So that's basically what I'm working on, a graphical editor where, you know how easy it's for babies to use an iPad or an Android tablet. It's all graphical. They just know what to do intuitively. This is the same, it's built on the same principle. This idea is the same principle. Yeah.
So here in this example, so one is after you have the data, right, then you need to analyze.
Yeah.
But even getting the data in a particular format, so if the MPs are giving you paper receipts, there's a huge challenge in terms of converting these 500,000 paper
Absolutely.
receipts into meaningful
Absolutely.
bits and bytes.
Absolutely.
So isn't there a bigger problem there in journalism?
There is, but it's I'll call it a regional problem. Now, thankfully, the United Kingdom today has made the receipt system all automated. It's all electronic. So they actually have their own in-house software, which is maintained by the Home Secretary's office. So it's all automated. So if I ever market this in the UK, I'm all set. Now we come to India.
Yes, that's where I face challenges.
Yeah.
We've
Even
Draping, you just pay $1 to a couple of guys and they'll do it for you. It's the same principle. So it's a very, again,